So someone is asking, please, how do we write academically as a beginner? And honestly, this is a very good question. Something we should have covered a long time ago. Because when you are new to academic writing, you see this academic writing stuff and journals and all these things like something that is very, very complex. And you ask yourself, why do people write like this? The good news is that academic writing is not about using big English. It is about learning how to communicate ideas clearly, formally, logically, and with evidence. So let's start with the foundation. Number one, stop trying to sound academic. This is probably the first mistake beginners make. You think if I use complicated words, well, my writing will sound academic. No. For example, something like the utilization of healthcare services is significantly impeded by multifaceted socioeconomic determinants. That sounds complicated, right? But what does it actually mean? You could simply say socioeconomic factors can affect people's use of healthcare services. The second sentence is much easier to understand, and it is still very much academic. So academic writing is not about making simple ideas complicated. It is about making your ideas clear and defensible. Number two, start with a clear point. Before writing a paragraph, ask yourself, what exactly am I trying to say? For example, maybe your point is, poor internet connectivity can affect the use of electronic health records. That is your main idea. Now you build around it. You can explain like what happens, why does it happen, or what evidence supports it, and something like why does it matter. So you build around your main idea. Make sure you always know what exactly you are trying to say before you write a paragraph. Clarity is a prerequisite for academic writing. Now, number three, use evidence. You can't do anything here without evidence. And this is one of the biggest differences between ordinary writing and academic writing. This one, you're not just writing something from your mind. You are using evidence to back it up. In everyday conversation, you can say something like, social media causes stress. But in academic writing, you need to ask, what evidence supports that claim? Maybe you find a study showing an association between social media use and psychological distress. Then you can write something like, previous studies have reported an association between frequent social media use and psychological distress. Then you can put the citation, which is the author and the year, into brackets. Now you are not simply making a statement, right? You are connecting your statement to evidence. Number four, learn the difference between claim and evidence. And this is very, very important. A claim is what you are saying. Evidence is what supports what you are saying. For example, a claim could be something like, limited internet connectivity can hinder the implementation of digital technologies. But the evidence is something like, a study found that poor connectivity was a reported barrier to implementation of digital health technologies. Then you bring in your explanation, which is something like, this suggests that digital health technologies may require infrastructure that supports reliable connectivity. So in any academic paragraph, a basic paragraph will be something that moves from claim to evidence to explanation. That simple structure will take you very, very far in academic writing. Then the fifth thing to do is to learn how academic paragraphs work. Don't think of a paragraph as just a collection of sentences. A good academic paragraph usually has a job. For example, sentence 1 would be the main point, sentence 2 would be the explanation, sentence 3 would be the evidence, and sentence 4 would be either more explanation or interpretation. And then sentence 5 could be something that links you to the next idea. Look at this example. Limited internet connectivity can hinder the implementation of digital health systems. Healthcare workers may experience interruptions when accessing electronic records or transmitting patient information. Previous studies have identified unreliable internet connectivity as a barrier to digital health implementation. And you cite it. Then you say these challenges may reduce system usability and discourage continued use among healthcare workers. You notice that every sentence here is connected to the same idea. That is how it works. Then number 6, stop writing like you talk. Academic writing is not a conversation or a gist, or should I say a gossip. So it's usually more formal than conversation, and I'm sure most of us know this already. So instead of something like, a lot of people don't use healthcare services because it is too expensive, you might write something like, high healthcare costs may discourage individuals from seeking healthcare services. Instead of something like, this shows that the program worked really well, you might write, these findings suggest that the intervention may have improved program outcomes. So you are not trying to sound fancy, no. You are just trying to be more precise. So you are simply being more precise when it comes to academic writing. Then number 7, be careful with words like proofs and causes. This is where academic writing becomes more scientific. Suppose your study or write-up finds that people who exercise more have lower blood pressure. You don't automatically write something like exercise causes lower blood pressure. If your study was observational, you may only have an evidence of an association, right? So you might write something like higher levels of physical activity were associated with lower blood pressure. And that is more scientifically appropriate. So your wording here matters. Then number 8, learn to use what is called hedging. This sounds complicated, but it is actually very simple. Hedging means avoiding statements that are stronger than your evidence allows. For example, a sentence that is too strong would be something like, the intervention improves mental health. That is too strong. You need to be more cautious. So you can use something that is cautious like, the intervention may improve mental health. Or you can say something like, the findings suggest that the intervention may improve mental health. So you are basically saying that this is what the evidence suggests, but I won't claim more than the evidence allows me to. Then number 9, learn from good academic writing. One of the fastest ways to improve is to read. You find a good journal article related to your topic of interest, and don't just read them for the information. Study how they write. Look at their structure, the formatting, the style. Look at how they introduce a topic, how they make claims, how they cite evidence, how they transition between ideas, and how they report results. Also look at how they discuss limitations. So you are basically learning the patterns of academic writing. Then number 10, don't copy their sentences. This is also important. Read academic papers to learn the structure and style and not to copy their wording. You can see something from claim to evidence to explanation. And then you can use that structure to express your own idea in your own words. And of course, if an idea comes from another source, you cite that source to avoid what? Plagiarism. And then number 11, this is where AI becomes dangerous. If you are a beginner, you might be tempted to say, let AI write everything for me. And that is exactly what you don't want. Because if you never practice constructing claims, arguments, paragraphs, explanations, and transitions, you never actually develop academic writing skills. So even if AI is lying to you, you will never know. So don't use them to replace the thinking and writing you are supposed to develop. So again, how do you actually practice? Here is a simple exercise you can do. Take one research paper or article, read one paragraph, close the paper, then ask yourself, what was the main point of this paragraph? Then write that point in your own words. Then ask yourself, what evidence did the authors use? Then ask yourself again, how did they explain that evidence? You can then try writing your own paragraph using the same logical structure but with your own topic and sources. If you do this repeatedly, you get better and better at it. And remember, you do not become an academic writer by suddenly learning 500 complicated words. You become an academic writer by learning how to make a clear point, support it with evidence, explain what that evidence means, connect your ideas logically, and avoid claiming more than your evidence supports. That is academic writing. So if you are a beginner, don't worry about sounding like a professor. First, learn to think clearly, then learn to write clearly. Clarity is all that matters. The academic style itself will come with practice. All the best. Thank you.